necessarily as exciting as you might have liked for it to have been, but I mean, a win is a win at the end of the day, I guess. So just tell us about the emotions right now that you've had a chance to let it sit a little bit.
Well, I always want to do more, and I always want it to be more exciting, and I want to knock out, and I want, to show performance and all that. So obviously, I always look back and wish I could have done this or that. With that being said, she's also one of those really scrappy fighters, and she can kind of make a fight look messy. She can, get into she'll bang with you, she'll be in the clinch with you, she'll go for takedowns. She has her wrestling background. She has, it's not like all of her wins are like by the same thing. She's kind of all over the place. She's kind of a threat everywhere. So one of the positive things is that we were able to take, her game away and not let her really get off on that. But yes, I wanted to do more. If I can be controlling the clinch, I better be being, kind of more damaging with it. So we'll just have to keep going to the drawing board. Yes, it feels good to win, but I always want more.
I mean, the first fight was kind of a weird one, too. I mean, is it like, can you just write this off as, hey, sometimes styles are just going to make for weird fights, or do you kind of, or will you be more critical of yourself than that?
I just feel like I could have done a lot from every situation in this fight. I've learned a lot since our first fight. Our first fight was kind of, a little bit more of just like back and forth. And this fight, I was able to kind of just control the pace of the fight. But I should have done it in any way I wanted to. I felt comfortable enough to do it anywhere, and I should have done better at that.
I think at the time of your fight, the beverages were probably flowing pretty well in the crowd, and I think they were ready to see Conor McGregor fight for sure. But there were some boos going on. I mean, can you hear that? And does it affect you, like, as you're fighting? I mean, you've had so many great highlights as well, but when you hear that, do you think about it?
I've heard boos. I didn't hear much tonight, but I did hear a couple. But it doesn't. Usually the people booing aren't the ones that actually do this for jobs. That really doesn't bother me, I don't understand everything that everybody does in their job, so I'm not going to criticize it. And it really doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. They don't have to boo me. Trust me, at the end of the day, I know that I want to go back and be like, you know what? I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I could have done more. I don't need I already know what I want to do, and I don't do this job for anybody. I do it for myself, and I try to make the people around me proud of me, and I want to do things like that. I want to make them proud, and I love that I have fans, and I always want to give them the best show I can, but sometimes I fall short of that, and it just keeps me driven to want to move forward and keep getting better.
Last thing for me, you said, listen, you want to get back to the title shot. Do you see a path there? I mean, have you mapped out how the division lies, and can you get it done this year? And are there certain names to get you there? Do you have a journey in mind of how you could get there?
When I say I want a title shot, as whatever path it is to get there, that's the goal. When I first started MMA, everybody said, "What are you doing?" And it's like, well, I want to be a champion in both boxing and MMA. And I want to do it. And a lot of people are like, why are you starting a whole new career at 29? You're almost 30, and you think you can go and make this whole new career. Well, I'm still 38 now, and I'm still ready to go. And I know that I'm stronger than the girls in my weight class. I know that I'm in shape, and I know I'm healthy, and I know that I can do more. And what I needed to do is let more of my punches and kicks go tonight. With that being said, though, I'm walking away with not taking any damage and still being able to control a fight. So there's some things you can take away that's positive, and some things that I can take away and criticize myself on. And I do both. I like I like constructive criticism. I like to do better and take what things worked and try and do more to capitalize next time.
Holly, just kind of going off that, as we spoke about on Tuesday, this was your first MMA rematch, and you said you were kind of looking forward to it, even though you kind of earlier in your career hated the idea of rematches. Of course, if you do fight for the belt again, it's likely Amanda Nunes will be the champion, and that will be another rematch. What can you take away from lessons learned tonight doing this that you could apply to another fight with Amanda, and why would things be different the next time around?
I mean, I think that there's a few things I can take away in the fact that tonight we were able to take away Raquel's game plan. She wasn't really able to get off doing anything that she wanted to do. So there's something to say for that. But I know that it would be a totally different fight with Amanda, and I would definitely need to perform better than what I did tonight in order to get that victory. And so that's what I want to do.
Hey, Holly, down here. You had an injury, I guess, that forced the fight to this card. Can you talk about what that was?
The last week of training before my last fight, I felt something pop in my hamstring, and I thought, well, I went through the whole weekend, or for the next couple days, I would just like sit on the bag and ground and pound because I couldn't even really like move around on my legs. And I just wanted to see how it felt before I said anything, because there's every fight camp you have little bumps and bruises by the time you actually get to the fight. You spend weeks going in and beating yourself up. So there's always a little bump or bruise here, and I've only had to pull out of one other fight for a herniated disc, which ironically was for Raquel Pennington. As the only 2 fights out of all boxing, over 50 fights in my career, there's only 2 fights I have ever had to pull out of for an injury. And I don't ever pull out right away until I know for sure if it's something wrong. And we just called and I said, I don't know what it is. There's something wrong with my hamstring, but I just can't fight on it. So they flew me out. They wanted to get an MRI on it and see what was really wrong. And I had torn 30% of the ligament that holds my hamstring. And there's just no way I was going to be able to be explosive off of it, kick off of it. I mean, I couldn't even bend over to pick something up off the floor, anything, any kind of motion like that. There's just no way I could have fought on it. And it was one of those things like, well, can I fight through it? And pretty much across the board, every doctor I talked to is like, I would say most likely you're going to just tear the whole thing if you go try to fight on it like that. And then I'm out for how long, So they said if you let it heal. So that's what I did. I let it heal. And I went back and they checked it and made sure that it was 100%. All the fibers had grown back, and at that point even they said they're there, but they still need to build to be stronger, so start slow with your training camp. And basically the doctor said, yeah, we'll clear you to fight for the 18th, but like no sooner. So as soon as I was able to get in there, I went at it. And during the first part of this training camp, actually, I actually took it slow. There's a lot of certain kicks I didn't throw. I started just boxing for a while to take it easy on my hamstring. And as the fight camp went, I ramped it up. And by the end of the camp, I didn't feel anything in it. I was very confident in my hamstring, and it's doing great.
And then I think when the news came out that the fight was going to be rescheduled, people thought that, well, it's obvious that the fight is going to be in Rio Rancho, going to be in Albuquerque. It wasn't. Why? Are you upset the fight wasn't in your hometown?
You know what? I just want to take whatever opportunity is there. And we had signed the contract for this fight. And then when the Rio Rancho card got announced, they said, we want you to fight Rio Rancho. And Raquel Pennington said that particular time she couldn't make. So they said, okay, well, let's keep it in January. And this is as simple as that.
Would you like to fight in the UFC in Albuquerque at least once?
If it runs across, then yeah. But if it doesn't, I don't get my heart set on one thing. I want to take whatever opportunities in front of me. And I'll definitely be there watching, though, and I'm super excited to watch everybody on the card. I'm excited that UFC is coming to Albuquerque, I'm very prideful of the city, and they're very, very supportive, so I'll definitely be there for the event.
You wouldn't be able to turn around and fight on that card right after tonight.
I mean, I'm feeling great. I'm healthy, so it's really not the worst idea.
Last thing, you mentioned in the cage that there were some other things kind of going on in your life before this fight. I don't mean to pry, but do you want to let us in on any of that stuff?
It was one of those things I really didn't. Leading up to the fight, I really didn't want to say anything that's going on because I don't want anybody thinking that I'm making excuses before the fight. Because I feel like life happens to anybody, no matter what. We all have things going on in our life, and we have to learn how to balance them. We're fighters. We have to be able to do that. And I mean, I'm open talking about it. My father had a stroke about 3.5 weeks ago. He's doing great. So that's what we're pumped about. But it's definitely been a balance.
Holly, question for you over here to your left. Right up here. There you go. So if you were to fight in New Mexico, and for your next fight, do you think 45 might be something you'd prefer? You made the cut again to 35. It's not an easy one. Do you feel like you want to stay at 35, or is 45 something that might interest you?
I feel comfortable going to 35. Yeah, I got to cut a little more weight to go to 35, but I don't ever get in there and feel gassed out or that I drop too much. Or, I think that a lot of people, they cut a lot of weight to make it, and then they feel like they're gassed out. And I feel like, I've had a pretty long career. I don't even know how many fights I've had total, but it's like 55 or 56 or something like that. And, for as many times as I cut weight, I'm 38 years old. I don't feel like I get in there feeling like I got gassed out. I feel fine. So, 135, I feel like if you can make that weight and you feel fine, then it's probably where your home should be. But I'm not against, fighting at 145. I still know that I'm strong enough to fight at 145, and I still feel like I'm a big enough fighter for 45. So it's not that I'm stuck at one or the other. But 135, I feel is maybe more my home, but I'm open.
You are the only world boxing champion who's become a UFC champion. There's a lot of talk from boxers about coming and jumping into this game. Claressa Shields is talking about wanting to come in and test Amanda Nunes. Can you give your opinion on how long it'll take a pure boxer, even at the elite level, to jump in here and be able to handle themselves in MMA?
I say it takes time. It takes mat time, because even if you learn everything, you can learn every technique there is, but how do you really react when it's live time to do it? And I think that one thing that made it easier for me to transition is that my amateur career was kickboxing. My first boxing fight was my first pro fight. It was one of those things like, nobody really wants to fight right now. We got to fight for you, but it's just going to be boxing. Oh, and it's pro. And I was like, okay. And I used to literally rely on just kicking. If you saw my amateur kickboxing films, I literally just kicked them the whole time. I had no boxing. So I had to learn this love for boxing. But then going into MMA, I had that background. And my entire boxing career has been out of the same gym. So it's very familiar to me. In between boxing camps, I would kind of kickbox while I sparred sometimes. So I feel like the transition was a little more familiar for me than most people it would be, because my coaches, Greg Jackson's worked some of my boxing corner. So I've always been around that. So I feel like the transition maybe was a little bit easier for me. With that being said, Claressa Shields is obviously a champ in I think 3 different weight classes. She's 24 and she's done this much already. How do you get there? Is from hard work, determination, belief in yourself, and skill. And so if she's done that, we'll see what happens. But I definitely think that, it's a different game. So it just takes time.
The time, can it be done in 6 months or a year, or would you think more like 2 or 3 years, if you had to say?
I would say it takes time. However, I'm one of those that thinks you can do anything. I said I'm going to leave boxing and start a whole new career, and I'm going to be champ, and everybody's like, okay, whatever. And I was able to do that, and I'm still pushing for it. So I'll never say it can't be done. Do I think that it takes a while? I really, truly do.
Last question for me. You're doing well, you look great, but do you have an end date on the career? Have you talked to Coach Jackson or Coach Wink? Any thoughts that you got 2 more in you, or 2 more years in you, or anything at all?
Yeah, I don't think like that at all. When I was done boxing, I literally was sparring. I had a boxing fight coming up, and I was sparring, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I asked Mr. Winklejohn, can I just talk to you in your office before I leave? And I said, I don't really have the passion to box anymore. I'm just going to finish this fight because I signed the contract, and my motivation is that I don't want to go out on a loss. This is my last boxing fight, and I'm not going back. And that was it. I just felt it. So I do not feel any want to leave this sport right now at all. So I just go fight by fight. Right now, I love this sport. I still want to do it, especially after a night like tonight. You have the taste of the win, but you could have done so much more. Of course, I want to get back in there.
Excellent. Congratulations on the great win.
Thank you.